If you're thinking about learning Spanish, you've probably heard about one of the greatest challenges, grammatical gender. The idea that a table is feminine and a book is masculine. This might seem a little bit strange to you as a native English speaker, but it's one of the most fundamental parts of the Spanish language. You might be thinking, how am I supposed to know the gender of each individual noun in Spanish? Do I have to just memorize a big list? But no, you don't have to memorize a big list. There is a pattern to it that once you learn it will tell you the gender of almost any noun. By the end of this video, you'll know the system to help you to know the gender of almost any noun and give you confidence to build sentences the right way and a whole lot faster. Don't go away. Hola and welcome to Spanish with El Güero. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, well, subscribe so that you don't miss any classes. And while you're at it, why don't you give this video a like? So, as you know, in English, we don't assign gender to objects. A table is just a table. A book is just a book. They don't have gender. They aren't masculine or feminine. But in Spanish, every noun has gender. It's either masculine or feminine. And that's not just a weird little quirk. It is the foundation of the whole grammatical system. If you get the gender of a noun wrong, it is a domino effect that makes you get a lot of other things wrong. The article, the adjective, it's all wrong. And that is where it can be frustrating because you learn a lot of new vocabulary, but then when you want to use it, you freeze. You're not sure if it's masculine or feminine. You're not sure which article to use or how to form the adjectives. It can be very intimidating and make you second guess what you want to say. But the good news is it doesn't have to be such a struggle. You don't need to memorize the gender of every noun. All you need is this simple rule, the OA rule. In Spanish, almost all nouns that end in O are masculine, and almost all nouns that end in A are feminine. And the great thing is, the majority of nouns in Spanish either end in O or A. So let's look at some masculine words ending in O. We have libro, book, libro. Perro, dog, perro. Vaso, glass, vaso. Carro, car, carro. All of these words end in O, and they are all masculine. And now some feminine words ending in A. Mesa, table, mesa. Casa, house, casa. Ventana, window, ventana. Silla, chair, silla. They all end in A, and they are all feminine. So, just by looking at the last letter of the word, you can generally predict if the word is masculine or feminine. So why is this important? Why do we need to know if the word is masculine or feminine? Well, that's where the articles and the adjectives come in. We're going to start with the articles. What are articles? Articles are the, a, an, and some in English, and in Spanish, el, la, los, las, un, una, unos, unas. As you can see, there are many more of them in Spanish, and that is because in Spanish, the articles have to match the noun in gender and number. This is a non-negotiable part of the language called agreement. So, as we already saw, there are 4 ways to say the. El, la, los, las. Just 1 in English, the, and 4 in Spanish, el, la, los, las. And there are 4 ways to say a, an, and some. Un, una, unos, unas. So, el and un are masculine and singular. La and una are feminine and singular. Los and unos are masculine and plural, and las and unas are feminine and plural. Now, it might seem like there are a lot of words to choose from, but that OA rule makes it clear which one to use. Take the word libro. It ends in O, and so it is masculine. It is also singular. It's just one book. And so we use el libro, the book, el libro, because el is masculine and singular, and so it matches libro, which is also masculine and singular, el libro. But if we're talking about more than one book, and we want to say the books, then we would say los libros. Because libros, of course, is still masculine, but it's plural, and so we have to use the plural article, the plural masculine article, los libros. The book, el libro. The books, los libros. Let's take mesa, for example. Mesa is feminine, and it is singular. And so we use the feminine singular article, la mesa, the table, la mesa. But if we want to say the tables, plural, then we would say las mesas. We have to use the feminine plural article, las mesas. The table, la mesa. The tables, las mesas. In Spanish, this is not optional. You must use the masculine articles for a masculine noun, the feminine articles for a feminine noun, the singular articles for a singular noun, and the plural articles for a plural noun. Everything must agree. Now, it's the same with the other articles. Un, una, unos, unas. What if I want to say a book instead of the book? To say a book, I say un libro, because libro is masculine and singular. So I use the masculine singular article, un libro. But what if I want to say some books? Instead of a book, some books. Well, then I use the masculine plural article, unos libros. A book, un libro. Some books, unos libros. What if I want to say a table instead of the table? Well, instead of la mesa, I would say una mesa. Una mesa, a table. But what if I want to say some tables? Well, then I say unas mesas. A table, una mesa. Some tables, unas mesas. For singular nouns, I use a singular article, and for plural nouns, I use a plural article. For masculine nouns, I use a masculine article, and for feminine nouns, I use a feminine article. Everything must agree. So do you see how powerful this rule is? You don't need flashcards to tell you which article to use with which noun. All you have to do is look at the last letter of the noun, and you know whether it's masculine or feminine, and you know which article to use automatically. Okay, so that covers the articles. But where the OA rule really becomes a game changer is with adjectives. Adjectives are words that describe things, big, small, beautiful, ugly, etc. In Spanish, not only the articles must agree in gender and number with the noun, adjectives also must agree in gender and number with the noun they describe. This can be a big problem for native English speakers because in English, our adjectives never change. They're always the same. It doesn't matter what the noun is. We say the red book and the red house. The word red is the same for both. Not in Spanish. The adjective itself has to change to agree in gender and number with the noun that it describes. And yes, they follow the OA rule. Adjectives in Spanish have two forms, a masculine form and a feminine form. And I bet you know how they end. The masculine form ends in O, and the feminine form ends in A. So let's go back to our examples. In Spanish, red is rojo. At least that's the masculine version. And so we know if we want to say the red book, libro is masculine. And so, yes, we're going to say rojo. Now, here's the catch. In Spanish, we put the adjective after the noun. This is the opposite of how it is in English, and so you have to get used to it. In Spanish, you don't say the red book, you say the book read. Yes, that sounds weird because you're not used to it, but in Spanish, it's normal. For native Spanish speakers, it sounds weird to say it the way that we say it in English. So, we have el libro, because el is the masculine singular article, the book, el libro rojo, the red book, el libro rojo, because rojo also must be masculine and singular to agree with el libro. But what about the red table? Table is mesa. It is feminine. That's why we say la mesa, the table, la mesa. We also have to change the adjective to match. And so we don't say rojo, we say roja. La mesa roja, the red table, la mesa roja. This is not optional. You must change it to match the noun. But what if we have several red books or several red tables? Well, the adjective also must match in number. We know that the book is el libro and the books is los libros. The article must match in gender and number, but the adjective also must match in gender and number. So the red book is el libro rojo, but the red books is los libros rojos. Los libros rojos. All three words, the article, the noun, and the adjective, must agree in gender and number. Los libros rojos. And it's the same if we have several red tables. The red table is la mesa roja, but the red tables is las mesas rojas. Las mesas rojas. So, it's one big beautiful chain reaction. The noun's ending tells you its gender, and the gender tells you the right article. It also tells you the right form of the adjective. And of course, they all must match in number as well, either singular or plural. Let's try another. The adjective for expensive is caro. So how would you say an expensive car? Well, car is carro, which is masculine because it ends in O. And so to say a car, you say un carro. But to say an expensive car, you say un carro caro. Remember, the adjective comes after the noun in Spanish. Un carro caro. Be careful because carro and caro are two different words. With a double R, it means car. Carro. It's a rolled R. Carro. Carro. And with just one R, it means expensive. Caro. Caro. So, an expensive car is un carro caro. But what if there is more than one expensive car? Some expensive cars. Then we would say unos carros caros. Everything must agree in gender and in number. Unos carros caros. An expensive car, un carro caro. Some expensive cars, unos carros caros. But what about an expensive house? Una casa cara. The adjective must agree in gender with the noun. Casa is feminine, and so instead of caro, we say cara. Una casa cara. Una casa cara. But what if there is more than one expensive house? Some expensive houses. Unas casas caras. Unas casas caras. The adjective must agree in gender and number with the noun. Unas casas caras. An expensive house. Una casa cara. Some expensive houses. Unas casas caras. The same thing works with the other articles as well. The expensive car. El carro caro. The expensive cars. Los carros caros. The expensive house. La casa cara. The expensive houses. Las casas caras. Think about what you just did. Without a single flashcard, you built 4 separate phrases. So now you're not just memorizing, you're understanding the system. You're building your own sentences based on logical rules. This is how you get past that beginner plateau and you start to think in Spanish. Now, does this rule work 100% of the time? No, there is no grammatical rule that works 100% of the time, but it works most of the time. 90-something% of the time. There are some exceptions, and we'll talk about those in the next class. So remember, in Spanish, all nouns have gender, even inanimate objects. Everything is either masculine or feminine. The articles must agree in gender and number with the noun. The adjectives also must agree in gender and number with the noun. And remember that the adjective generally goes after the noun that it describes in Spanish. So now you have the key. Start looking for this pattern everywhere. When you see a new noun, don't just memorize it. Look at the ending and see how it fits into the system. By doing that, the language will start looking less like a bunch of random rules and more like a predictable, logical system. And that's our class for today. I hope you enjoyed this video and that it was useful for you. If you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, please subscribe so that you don't miss any more classes. Here are a couple other classes that could be useful for you. Hasta luego.